Welcome back to Building and Breaking, where we talk about how brands are built, trust is broken, and what salon owners, hairstylists, and beauty brands can learn. My name is Nina. I'm your host. And today, yes, once again, we are going to be talking about one of my favorite brands. Now, this is another brand I've been studying for decades and only became like a real, like fanatical customer in the last like 6 years. Like it's interesting. I've shopped with this brand, but I've haven't been as obsessed with it as I have in the last few years. And that brand is Trader Joe's. You know we got to talk about it. So today here's what we're not talking about today. We're not talking about the $3.99 eucalyptus that I am obsessed with and buy all the time. We're not talking about everything but the bagel seasoning, even though, I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm stocked up on that or those dark chocolate peanut butter cups. Oh my God. Anyways, no, what we're talking about is a masterclass in brand clarity and decision making and consistency and alignment in everything they do. Everything Trader Joe's does is intentional, as is everything they do not do. And that's where we're going to focus. Does Trader Joe's do delivery? Nope. Self checkout? Nope. Coupons? Nope, 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 nope. And why? Well, we're going to get into it. But bottom line is they're clear, they're consistent, and they don't budge. They understand that each decision that they make has an impact on the experience, on that brand promise. That is why their customers are so obsessed with them. And this is not something like I need to Google and research. This is just how brand story and strategy are aligned with decisions. This is my expertise, of course, but they're just such a great example of how staying aligned and focused wins every time. Even with the chaotic parking lot, right? Even with all that tension, all of that, we still go. We still go. And when I say we, I mean the people that are obsessed with Trader Joe's. So we're going to break it down and bring it back to you, salon business and beauty brands. So the first thing is, and the foundation is, their brand story is loud and clear and they stick to it. They are about small neighborhood market. They are about adventure and fun. They are about affordability, value, and high quality. They're about unique products with this deep human connection. They are not trying to be everything to everyone. And they're not competing with the stores that do couponing, that do self checkout, that do delivery. They didn't jump on any of those things. They're like, nope, we know that each one of these things is going to have a negative impact on our brand promise, the reason why our customers come back, come back. So when we look at that from a salon perspective or a beauty brand perspective, you're not for everybody. And we see those quotes going around Instagram, we're not for everyone. But do you really understand what that means and how your brand story is the filter? Is the filter. And the more clear you get on who you are for, I mean, everything falls into place. Simple, not easy. So, I mean, with beauty brands, clarity in, positioning and really understanding that I actually just shared something on Facebook and LinkedIn about this morning. Getting clear on your audience. And I know that even the term pro beauty brand is kind of like, kind of not a thing anymore because the majority, not all, remember, we're not doing absolute black and white thinking here. We're seeking context and nuance. However, most pro beauty brands aren't really pro anymore, right? They sell direct to consumer. They may be an Ulta, Sephora, et cetera, et cetera. That doesn't mean that they still can't serve the salon pro, but you have to get really clear and specific about who you are serving and how you are serving and aligning all of that with that brand promise. So why does did Trader Joe's decide not to get into the delivery game, whether it be direct delivery or, Instacart or whatever, because they could have, but they didn't. And a big part of, and again, this is my observation and analysis. I don't know anyone at Trader Joe's. I did not talk to them. I did not read a research report on Trader Joe's or anything like that. But it makes sense to me because the in store experience is literally the brand. It's finding the new items. It's being bummed about things that are seasonal or discontinued. It's the neighborhood vibe. It's small. It's intimate. It's discovering things you didn't even know you needed. And it's that connection with their crew members. I'm going to talk about this several times throughout this episode, but the crew members, I don't know about you, but I love reading like the memes and the content about the Trader Joe's crew members and how incredibly friendly they are and how they're asking questions all the time. And I love the memes about it. I love the posts about it, but it's all by design. It's all by design. And it's driven by their brand story, in particular, their brand promise and that human connection. That's the magic. That's the differentiation. That's what makes Trader Joe's Trader Joe's. And when we remove that element, well, now slowly, well, I could really just, get my, XYZ somewhere else. So just because you can do something doesn't mean you should, right? And experience is everything. We've talked about that in literally every episode so far of this podcast. But when you're making any decision, which is, again, brand story is the foundation of every decision you make, you need to go back to that. You need to go back to center. You need to go back to, does this fit our brand story, our brand promise? Is this aligned with the outcomes and objectives I have? Because if the answer is no, well, then you kind of have your answer, right? So just because you can doesn't mean you necessarily should. So, quite current in discussions in the industry right now, for pro beauty brands. I very much understand the options of distribution channels. Like I get it. I understand the math. I was there. I get it. I pay attention. I get it. But just because you can sell on Amazon doesn't mean you should. I'm not saying you shouldn't. I'm just saying, right? So for some brands, a move to mass distribution wouldn't really have a big impact. There would be maybe a little you know, a few people kind of pissed off for a minute, but it wouldn't have a significant impact. And then for other brands, it has a major impact and an impact you may not feel right now. Because typically, what happens is the decisions that we make, we don't necessarily have this big, oh shit, like everyone's pissed off. I lost all my clients or lost all my customers. That's not the way it works. It works slow. It's slow and it's not always obvious until one day we wake up and we're like, oh shit, what happened? So that's why these everyday decisions are so important. Okay. So self checkout, why don't they do self checkout? Well, that goes back to the crew members, right? The crew members are such a critical part of the Trader Joe's experience, what their differentiation. So self checkout, from an efficiency thing, from a cost thing, when we look at, grocery stores are like, oh, well, we can eliminate XYZ checkout people, and that's going to go straight to the bottom line and blah, blah, blah. I mean, that's the way things work, right? But that decision could cost them dearly, depending on the brand. And in the case of Trader Joe's, that decision would cost them dearly because, again, such a big point of difference for them is the crew member. And are those conversations that we are having when we are at the checkout, right? So just because it's fast and easy, just because it could impact the bottom line short term, it's kind of like discounting, which we'll get to in a minute. Impact the bottom line short term, from a long term perspective, it completely erodes the point of difference. It erodes the human connection, everything that Trader Joe's is built on. The crew members are trained this way, right? They're trained to tell us about what's going on, to ask us which our favorite thing is, or to say like if you get, whatever thing you get, they're like, oh my gosh, I love that. Or, oh, I haven't tried that yet. Let me know what you think of it. That's literally their job, is to engage. And they do it authentically because I mean, they join the brand for a reason too. So are they naturally that friendly? I mean, I think you have to have some sort of like friendly DNA to sign up to work at Trader Joe's for sure, but it is by design. It's how they hire, it's how they train, it's what they value. And that is crystal clear from recruitment to hiring to onboarding to ongoing training to coaching, just like in the salon. Everything is by design and it all comes back to your brand. So, team handbooks, onboarding processes, hiring, training, career pathing, all of that. All of that. So, clarity of brand, that's where it starts. So, we have to be mindful of that in our own businesses. And if human connection is something people value, and I'm going to tell you right now, it is more and more as we get more, attached to the internet, as AI continues to evolve. Yeah, human connection, it can be a point of difference. Real human connection, right? Not fake. So with beauty brands, you look at the education teams, the corporate representatives, all of that. Is there a true connection? Is there a real connection? Some of the coolest brands that I have seen, and I'm not talking about Trader Joe's with this statement, but some of the coolest brands I've seen, and the ones that tend to get a lot of attention these days, I would say in the past 10 years, the internet age, the real big internet age, are the ones who have leadership present online, right? That are engaged with a community, that aren't sitting in a boardroom and invisible. Thus, personal brands becoming so much more important. We talked a little bit about that in the Taylor Swift episode. Okay, so discounting, couponing, Trader Joe's doesn't do that. How come? Well, I mean, their whole market position is value, right? The whole market position is value. Everyday fair pricing. It's not messy. There's no guessing. There's no apps. There's no loyalty points. There's no do this, and then you get this. It's all designed to support the brand promise. Everyday fair pricing, unique product offerings, ethical product offerings. So they don't need to do all the song and dance, dog and pony show bullshit. It's just clear and it's simple. And customers like that. I mean, don't we all, to be honest? So that clarity, that consistency, that simplicity builds trust. And I've talked about this for forever. Discounting teaches people to ask for discounts and look for deals. And there are discount brands, there are value brands, right? There's also premium brands and luxury brands. But unless you're like a discount brands, you got to be super mindful of that. Again, we're talking about short term versus long term, right? So in the short term, if we go back to some of those like discounting platforms from I don't know, 12, 13, 14, 15 years ago. I don't even remember the name of them. Isn't that crazy? Anyways, oh my, Groupon. So something like Groupon, where people are like, oh shit, I can like generate $10,000 in 5 minutes. And it's like, okay. And then look what happened, right? The impact of that. The impact of that could have been the system wasn't set up to generate 10 grand in 5 minutes. Or it could have been the impact of that 10 grand in 5 minutes took away 20 grand in the business because the entire team walked out because they were asked to do 50 gazillion more things than the system was set up for them to do, etc. So discounting, it damages the value, right? You can create value. Trader Joe's proves it. You can create value in your products and services. But this excessive discounting you lose differentiation and you lose long-term brand value. So they don't need to do that. And Trader Joe's, they don't chase trends, right? They're not like, oh, this is who we are today. This is who we are tomorrow. This is who we are. They have been consistently who they are for decades. And I've talked about this a lot on different episodes. We talk about this a lot with our clients. And a big problem I see with salons, I also see with beauty brands, is that there's this like urge to like create a whole new brand identity when things are not so awesome, right? Let's say like revenue's just been shrinking, or seems like you're losing um, your community, or engagement is down, or whatever. And it's like, I know, let's completely change all of our packaging. And then like, oh, we're going to change our packaging. Oh, we're going to change our brand identity. Oh, we're going to change our logo. Oh, that's not always the answer. I'm not saying it's not the answer. In some cases, it may be the answer. Generally speaking, though, it's not. The problems are not that. That's not the problem. So there's nothing wrong with evolving brand story, evolving brand identity, but this continual change of this is who we were 2 years ago, but we're going to be totally different next year. That doesn't work with consumers, not long term, right? And we're always looking at lifetime client value, lifetime customer value, the amount of happiness, joy, referrals, and revenue that client brings you over the lifetime of your relationship. That's what we're looking at, right? So clarity wins. Clarity always wins. Simplicity always wins. Consistency always wins. So, you know, oh, Trader Joe's. I got to bring in a personal story here. So, there's Southwest Airlines was, oh, we haven't done Southwest yet. Oh, we're going to do Southwest. Southwest Airlines really was an innovator in the autonomy of their team members. They were allowed to make decisions like the gate agents and the flight attendants, and they were allowed to really be themselves and add this like flair and uniqueness and human connection. Starbucks, again, we talked about this in last week's episode. So with Starbucks and the baristas and the dress code, and how the idea that they want to get back to like local community, but then made a decision around dress code that was completely the opposite of what they said they wanted to move back towards. Your people are the brand, right? Every person represents the brand. And one thing I love it, one of the many things I love about Trader Joe's is that consistency. So a couple years ago, I was at my Trader Joe's. I don't know if you do that also, or I'm like my Trader Joe's. So that would be like your main store. It could be whatever, my wherever you go. My Costco, my Trader Joe's. Um, so I was at Trader Joe's on Saturday morning. I go first thing in the morning. Well, I used to. Now I have to drive 40 minutes to Trader Joe's, which is fine because I still do it. But when I was back in Portland, it was 5 minutes away. So I was there first thing. They open at 8 a.m. And I went to buy that. I don't know if you've ever had this, that chocolate sheet cake. Oh my God, it's so good. And I was buying it for a special and sad occasion. And of course, the crew member's like, oh my gosh, I love that cake. What's the occasion? And I said, well, I'm buying this for my friend's birthday. It's their birthday today, and they passed away a few years ago. And I don't know. I just felt like was the way to remember her, because I know she would have really loved this cake. The crew member stopped, looked at me, and said, "This one's on us." I was stunned. Kind of like I am now recording this episode, choked up. And yes, duh, of course, I cried. This one's on us. That's connection. That's humanity. And that is so much more valuable than the few pennies they would have made off that one stupid yet delicious little sheet cake. This one's on us. So this wasn't about policy. This wasn't about approval. This wasn't about anything but embodiment of Trader Joe's brand story, and in particular, their brand promise. I will never, ever, ever forget that moment. So when we're looking at policies, we're looking at rules, we're looking at empty performative mission statements. That's not what it's about. It's about moments like this one's on us. That's what builds lifetime client value. That's what builds lifetime customer value. That is priceless. So, you know, you don't have to love Trader Joe's. Just you don't have to love any of the brands we talk about on this podcast. My whole purpose here is to help you understand the connection between brand story and strategy, building brands, how trust is broken, so you can make more aligned decisions. So you can feel more confidence, more clarity, have more context, right? Your brand story is your North Star. It's your GPS. It's your foundation. It's your compass. And it's something that I continue to see missing in our industry. Some of the most brilliant minds talking about business classes and advice. And it's like, but yeah, how do you give pricing advice without understanding brand story and market position? Because they're connected. Pricing is driven by market position, brand. And of course, cost of goods are part of it, but that's not what drives it. So it's your foundation for literally everything. And Trader Joe's shows us, because sometimes I see people, especially creatives, so I totally understand, kind of get bored. Like, why it feels almost restrictive, but it's actually the opposite. When you have this clarity of brand story like Trader Joe's do, it's actually freedom. Trader Joe's is fun. Having clarity and being consistent isn't restrictive. It's actually awesome because you don't have to worry about everything all the time. You're not continually reinventing and being inconsistent with your decision making and being overwhelmed by having to make decisions in the first place. The clearer you are, the more joy you feel, right? The more we can focus on those relationships and that human connection. That's such an important lesson that we get from Trader Joe's. Even when the parking lot's chaotic, even when things are imperfect, it's always going to come back to clarity and consistency. And Trader Joe's is such a beautiful reminder of that. I would love to hear your feedback on this episode. I am loving getting feedback on these episodes. Thank you so much. I truly appreciate it. And I also realized this is, I don't know, is this our sixth? I think this is our sixth episode. I haven't talked at all about the Creating Your Awesome Brand course, which is available to Beauty Pros. I made it for Beauty Pros. It's an evolution of the same course I've been doing for, I don't know, 12 years, really since the beginning of Passion Squared. And I want to just explain why. Passion Squared started as a company that was going to help empower the professional beauty space around the social and digital revolution. Because at the time, in 2012, most people are like, oh, Facebook's dumb, it's a fad, whatever. So as I began working more intimately with salon owners and stylists and even beauty brands, I realized how little brand fundamentals people understood, because when you're talking social and digital, your content is your marketing. So to understand how to create content and storytell and do all of those things, we have to have clarity of brand. So it was the first workshop that I built, that I conducted online, and conducted a gazillion of them offline as well over the years. So yeah, that's what I do. I have a course. It's all fundamentals. And I have it linked. I have it linked everywhere. It's available to you everywhere. And I truly believe after my first 25 plus years working on the salon side and the brand side, and then the last 13 years working directly with salon owners and stylists and some brands. I truly believe that lack of understanding of brand story strategy is one of the reasons we have such systemic dysfunction in the beauty industry. So many of the problems that I see people facing are the same problems that they were facing 20 years ago. Not everything can be solved with brand story clarity, but a majority of what I see every day can be solved with clarity of brand story. So that's my little commercial, my little plug. Creating Your Awesome Brand, a complete course for beauty pros. We go through brand story, development, of course, because that's foundation. We go through naming, we go through brand identity, we go through online marketing, offline marketing, pricing as strategy, healthy boundaries and communications like agreements and stuff like that. Yeah. So creating your awesome brand. If you have any questions, you know where to find me at Passion Squared, literally everywhere. I would love to hear your stories. If you've been to Trader Joe's, if you love Trader Joe's, I'd love to hear about it and why you love Trader Joe's. If you don't love Trader Joe's, I'd love to hear about that too. Because again, they're not for everyone. They're not for everyone, but they are crystal clear on who they are for. And that's the lesson. That's the lesson. And that is the reminder that every decision you make is driven by your brand story. I'm so grateful you're here. Thank you so much for listening. And we'll be back next week with another brand breakdown. Have a peaceful day. Bye.